No ponies, but plenty of pucks to talk about.
Well, it is the off season for yours truly, so there'll be a lot of ponies here in the very near future. Considering the Stanley Cup final just ended the last week.
You did a great job.
So it's thank you very much. Yeah, great to be finished, and looking forward to the draft this weekend. We've already had some interesting moves around the National Hockey League, and I'm sure Blackhawk fans are zeroed in on what might take place for Kyle and for Normie, the brass for the Blackhawks, and trying to turn the ship around here. And, you get a couple of young players and you let them develop. I don't know. Besides the top pick will be Matthew Schaefer for the New York Islanders, a defenseman. It'd be interesting to see if he starts in the Island, but I don't know if there are, again, people that I trust and talk to about the draft. I don't know if there's maybe anybody that would be starting with the parent club at the start of the next season. So obviously this is about maybe 8 months from now, or 12 months, or maybe 2 or 3 years. So it's all about the future when you talk about the majority of these players in the NHL draft here tonight and tomorrow.
What about a guy like Michael Misa, who's slated to go second, Eddie? And I think there's some people who are Hawks fans that envision him maybe dropping to third, and if he does, could be on a fast track to Chicago.
Yeah, he seems to be the one player, David, that is getting a lot of attention, obviously, because if Schaefer does go number one, then it's going to be okay. Well, how do the chips fall? And what do specific teams look at, and what are the needs? And obviously, with the Hawks sitting in that third spot, just you got plan A, plan B, and I can just speak from experience when I was in Pittsburgh some 20 years ago in those draft meetings with our amateur scouts, and then you're at the draft table, and you got plan A, plan B, and sometimes somebody goes off the chart. But I think depending on where the Hawks feel their needs are, and the thought of best player available to needs to position, not overly big guy Misa. And then again, the position part. When this team has had success, it has been, and teams that have won, you're super strong down the middle of the ice, and certainly Misa can play both positions. But if Misa goes two, then you got a guy like Frondell sitting there. You got Porter Martone, who is a center iceman. He's got some bite to his game. He can score. He's a little bit of a different look at the center ice position. So. You have plan A, plan B, and then when it hits the fan, then all of a sudden, then maybe, their maneuverability going on. But Misa certainly looks like he has the momentum to end up being the second overall pick to San Jose.
It's fascinating to me because I think that just reading some of the draft stuff, they're saying that the Stanley Cup Finals will steer teams toward bigger players. That there's so much size on display and there's so much physicality in the Stanley Cup Finals that you might want to get some, like I forget the kid's name, Hagens, the kid from Boston College. He's starting to fall a little because he's a little guy, and we know the Hawks have a lot of guys like that. If they end up with a Frondell or the other guys like 6'3", I think the Martone.
Yeah, Martone is almost 6'3".
Yeah. So would that be sort of a different look given what they already have? They're kind of a speed team and they don't have great size. Is that what other teams are now going to be looking for based on the Stanley Cup Finals?
It is. You hear it in all sports. A copycat type league. But I think the National Hockey League, I think for the most part, even if you go back, I just go back to the mid '80s where guys that were 6'1" were big guys. Now all of a sudden 6'1" guys are probably below average. So I think it is depending on the philosophy for your team and your franchise. I know the one thing, just looking at it here the last 5 years for the Hawks, they've gotten much larger on the back end. Now, just because you become bigger and larger on the back end doesn't mean it's going to lead to success or lead to a change in where you've been. It's getting different varieties and giving yourself the best opportunity. And again, I like I said, the experience that I lived, I mean, we were in a major rebuild when I was in Pittsburgh, and very similar to obviously what the Hawks have been going through here recently. And you look at it and you look at, how do you build? You build through the middle of the ice. You got to build in net, you got to build in goal, you got to build on defense, and you got to build at the center ice position. So you're right. I mean, a kid like Hagens, I mean, there are a lot of people thinking that he was going to be 1 or 2, and he's lucky if he's 5'8". I mean, I know he was listed at 5'10" and a half for the majority of the season, and then he had his official weight and height measurements at the combine. And so look at, you can, if the player is what you need and what you feel can be one of those difference makers regardless of the position and you need, then you jump up and you take them. But I think to your point though, Mully, with you look at a team like Florida, Edmonton is they're a little bigger than people realize. I mean, I think in the overall scheme of it, if you are a tad bigger than most teams, I think and your goal is obviously to win the Stanley Cup, you need some guys that have some heaviness and have some length, and that is seemed to be the way that the NHL has been going here probably the last probably 5 to 7 years.
Eddie, I love the NHL draft, but I am getting a little tired of it meaning so much to the Blackhawks. Every year for the past couple, we've now looked at them drafting high and adding prospects to this rebuilding project that, frankly, it's time to win. And I just wonder, as we transition from the draft into next week's free agency, how ready are they to be aggressive in free agency, to bring in the kind of player? I know Mitch Marner is everybody's dream free agent signing, but I wonder if it's realistic for the Hawks. I wonder what is realistic for the Hawks, because it's great to talk about prospects. They'll welcome in a couple tonight, and we'll think that they're on the right track. Are they on the right track, and how close are they?
Well, as far as Marner, I mean, my get is that he looks like he's going to be heading out west. Now, where is that going to be? Is that Vegas? Is that Utah? Is that Los Angeles? Is that Anaheim? I'm not sure. I would probably put my horse racing cash on Vegas. So I don't know if he's going to be in the Midwest or I don't think he's going to stay in the East Coast. But in just saying that on the free agent part of it is, I mean, look, you do have obviously some major building pieces, obviously with Bedard, and you guys know how I feel about Frankie Nazar. He performed exceptionally well. Talking to people with the U.S. World Championship team, like he really, really turned some heads and opened up some eyes. I mean, he played outstanding there for Team USA, winning a gold medal for the first time in 300 years. I mean, it was an incredible feat for Team USA. But he's like, I mean, I look at him like he is on the. I mean, he's there. Like, I mean, he's got the ability to be one of those kind of difference makers. And when you do have difference makers, and yeah, it's been a tough go, David, here recently, and probably too long for obviously for the Blackhawk fans and for Danny and ownership, but. You're right. It's some of these young players that they've gotten have to take the next step, and Nazar has certainly done that. I mean, they need Connor Bedard to really take a major step this summer and going into next season. And look, I keep going back to what I'm saying, but like I said, I lived it at the highest level as a coach in the National Hockey League, where you go in a certain direction, you're going to rebuild. You try to make sure you have your right veteran guys like a Nick Foligno around your young players that you're building, and it's so hard. And when you dig yourself a hole, it's just really hard to get out of it. But they got some young players that Blackhawk fans still have not seen that have a chance to be able to help. Now, whether that's this year or the following year, I mean, I have no idea, but it's you have to know where you were, where you are, and where you're trying to get to. And I think they certainly are in the process of that. And, when it comes to free agency, it's, look, I mean, players have options, and, what are they going to need? And the one thing I did learn, and I know that it's standard pat and gotten really stronger as it's gone on. It's almost like the National Hockey League has started to finally, I think, have looked at free agency a lot like recruiting. And I was only recruited, one time when I was deciding whether or not I was going to go to college or not. But it feels like it has gotten to that where you have people coming to your home, you have people meeting you, you have people selling. They have, videos like John Lester, when the Cubs were trying to sell Wrigley Field and the Cubs in the city of Chicago, to John Lester to come win a World Series here in Chicago. The National Hockey League has started here in the last little while of really the recruitment aspect and having a presence of when you are trying to sell your team and your brand and your city to these free agents to come. And that's become a really, really important part of it. And players, look at, you should want to play in the greatest city in the world. Like, I'm obviously biased. I'm from here. I mean, I love this place. I love the Blackhawks. I always will. Like, I would tell it, but you'd be foolish. Like, when I talked to Coach Jeff Blashill, about the prospects of coming to Chicago. I mean, he knew my feelings because we had talked about it over the years. I mean, it's just like it's the selling now of what you have and what you're trying to get to, and that's such an important part of these meetings that you're having with the agents and the players and their wives or their girlfriends or their family. Sometimes their parents are involved. I mean, that is such an important part of it, and and look at that goes for coaches too. I mean, it goes for what you're trying to do. So I like I said, things you learn over time, and you talk to a lot of people, and that is such an important part of it. And I know for Kyle and for Normie, they're trying everything that they can, and they love the fast track and get this thing really turned around and to be playing really meaningful games in March and April. And you get that opportunity. It starts with the draft and a lot of picks, as you guys mentioned before you brought me on, to be able to have some. You have assets. Obviously, you have assets, and then it's just a matter of how you can add on to those, whether it's from within or from the outside.
Great stuff, Eddie. Thank you. And hey, congratulations. Heard that you're doing work with the Hall of Fame, and obviously we know that Duncan Keith got in, which is awesome, and I'm sure there'll be more players from that team.
Congrats,
on the way.
Eddie.
Yeah, congrats.
Well, it was an honor to be my first year to be a part of the selection committee, and it's an incredible process, but it's when I saw Dunk's name go up there, rightfully so. It was a no-brainer, and look at the Blackhawks have had many great players, obviously Chelly and Dougie Wilson, Pierre Palat, but I would make the argument without question that when you look at the body of work of Duncan Keith and longevity and the wins and the individual awards, is that rightfully so going to the Hockey Hall of Fame, because I believe he is the greatest Blackhawk defenseman ever to put on that sweater, and that's saying something with some of the greats that have played here. So it was an honor to be a part of it. Congratulations to the Hawks and to Dunk, and look forward to talking to you guys down the road, and always appreciate you guys having me on.
Thanks, Edzo.
Thanks, Edzo. Great stuff. That is Eddie Olczyk.
I agree with him, too.
Yeah.
I'm
he's
Duncan
the best.
Keith, yeah.